My name is Weston Ochse. I'm the author of more than 30 novels, to include SEAL Team 666, Grunt Life, Burning Sky, and Dead Sky, and the Alien novel, which is coming out soon, called Alien Infiltrator. I've also written for DC Comics, IDW, Weird Tales, and Cemetery Dance Magazine. And happy Alien Day!
Hello, my name is Clara, but you can call me Mother, and welcome to the Studio Yutani Alien Day podcast. Today with me, I have Weston, and he is going to be writing, or is currently writing, the new Alien book, Alien Infiltrator. Hello, Weston. How are you? Happy Alien Day.
Yes, happy Alien Day to you. Thank you for having me.
So, I guess what I would like to start with is a bit of a background about your work, and you started out your writing career. What sort of genres did you start with, and is that where you are now?
Well, gosh, I've been writing for about 20 years. I started with horror, and I also write science fiction and thriller. I even wrote a romance novel one time. I just like to write. I mean, character and plot is where it's at, and if I find a really interesting character or a really nice plot, I just want to follow it to the end. I was lucky enough recently to write Alien Infiltrator, and it's definitely going to be one of the cherries on top of a career.
That sounds fantastic. How long did it take you to write the book?
It actually took me longer to get the outline approved than to write the book. It took me only about 4 months to write the book, but it took 6 months to get the outline approved, because it not only had to be approved by the publisher, Titan, but it also had to be approved by the studio, Fox, and then Cold Iron, the game company, because this is touted as a prequel to a new game that's coming out.
Oh, that's fantastic. Obviously, you can't speak too much about it, so we'll try to keep as vague as possible so to not get you in trouble.
Thank you.
But before we go into brief outlining of the book, what was your first experience with Alien or the Alien franchise?
So I'm old school. I can remember when the very first movie came out, and I took my girlfriend and her brother, and we went out to see what we thought was just your average sci-fi movie. It turned out to be a horror movie in space, and both of us were covering the eyes of this 10-year-old we brought with us, and I think we were 13 at the time, or 12 or 14, I don't know. And it was probably at that moment the scariest movie I'd ever seen in my life.
Oh my goodness, I can imagine that was not what went to plan.
It was, and we learned right away that we're not going to bring the little brother on any other movie experiences after that, because no telling what it was going to be.
For sure. Out of the films, which one do you think is your favorite?
I have a soft spot for Colonial Marines, so probably be 2. I mean, you gotta love the way the Colonial Marines went down there, and gotta love Bill Paxton. Game over, man.
Well, that's great. That's just fucking great, man. Now what the fuck are we supposed to do? We're some real pretty shit now, man.
You finished?
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
I was going to say, who's your favorite character and what's your favorite quote? So that's the answer, I guess.
I like him as an actor, and I like the fact that he made that phrase up on the spot. It was never in the script. He practiced it, and then when it came time for him to do his scene, he did that, and they left it in the movie.
Oh, that's really special. I like that. What do you think about the character of Hudson and what he had to do in Aliens? What do you think about his sort of attitude at the beginning and how he ended up as a character at the end?
Well, I think one of the things that makes the movies work so well, and some of the better novels, is that the characters change from beginning to end. I know in my novel, Infiltrator, we begin with a character who's a scientist, and he's quite the coward, but he has to become brave in order to survive. And if he doesn't become brave, he won't survive. So I really like the various character arcs that Scott did in the movies, and I like the character arcs that us authors are able to translate to the page.
Yeah, that's really great. What do you think is your favorite version of the alien? Because we've got all these different ones. We've got the big chap, we've got the warrior, we've got the dog or ox alien from Alien 3, and then the clone aliens from Alien Resurrection, and even the ones from the new prequels. Is there any particular type of design that kind of speaks to you?
No, I mean, it was great being able to write this because I did do so much research and then figure out what was canon and what was not canon, what was from a fan wiki and what was real, and going back and forth with the studio and the publisher. I frankly, I watched all the movies, but I didn't categorize all the different versions of the aliens. So when I saw them all in all the different ones, I'm like, oh, this is going to be fun, because now I can create all these different versions, especially when I have a group of scientists who are performing experiments on aliens, trying to see what they can do to them, perhaps weaponize them even. So it was pretty exciting. I was able to create several new aliens in the book that excited the game company. And they're looking to see if they can maybe invigorate the Alien franchise and use some of those new ones in their game.
Wow, that's really great. I really like how a lot of the material that they've got put out now is tied in, but at the same time, there are other options like Scott Sigler's Alien Phalanx, which could be still considered outside of the current running canon. What do you think about the sort of ideas of like canon or non-canon, whether things are relegated to the sidelines or whether they're part of the main story?
Well, when I saw, Scott and I are friends, and so I got to read his before everybody else did. And when I saw what he did, I'm like, dude, only you could do something like that. I mean, that was really pretty incredible. But then I've read, Tim Lebbins and Jim Moores and Chris Golden, who are also friends of mine, and Tim Wagoner, also friends of mine. And I think it's harder to write in canon than outside of canon. My first experience writing in the Alien universe was in John Mayberry's anthology, Alien Bug Hunt, where I wrote my first short story called Zero to Hero. And it was an anthology, just all colonial Marines. And I had to look at the timeline, and I had to pick a time and everything else. What was fun about the novel Infiltrator is I had to pick a time that would make it so that I could use black goo and a few other cool things, yet not step on any of the toes of the studio. And so once I did that, I was able to not only draw from the canon of everything that came before. But I went into Alien Bug Hunt and I looked at some of the stories that came before, and I used some of the things like from Larry Correa, his story. I talked to him and I used some of the things in his story in my novel, just so I could tie it back in to something that people had already read.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, I always like Easter eggs when I'm reading series and things like that. So I try and put them in as much as possible.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. That's totally my thing. So I'm really excited. Out of I guess the different films, I really like to look at the technology. There's usually a party of people that say, you know, the prequels, the technology looks too modern. People prefer the cassette futurism of Alien, or even the kind of like retro futuristic of Aliens. Did you have any particular preference in the technology department, or in the depictions in the Alien universe?
I didn't, and it's funny because, you know, a lot of the technology is kind of a wave of the hand, where, you know, you don't really know what's going on. You just trust that it's, you know, good technology. What I did find interesting was that the weapons really never changed over a period of hundreds of years. You know, it's the same weapons they're using, with just a couple of various modifications. And really, a lot of these weapons we could design today and use those weapons at this day. So probably my disappointment was that there wasn't anything really advanced about the weaponry. You know, there's no real laser guns or pulse cannons, not really, you know, but I was able to at least pick and choose those weapon systems that I thought were appropriate for the time. One of the things they didn't want me to do was they didn't want me to make this a book about colonial Marines, but I did sort of cheat because I had a bunch of retired colonial Marines on the space station where they're at. And so, you know, it was not about colonial Marines, but, you know, if bad things happen, the retired colonial Marines might come and help out. So that was kind of fun.
Sneaky, very, very sneaky. I like it.
That's right.
Have you ever played any of the Alien games? Like, my first Alien game was actually the very, very first one was on the Commodore 64 back in the 80s.
Wow.
And then I played Alien Isolation, and then I went back and played the AVP 2010. Have there been any Alien games that you've played yourself?
No, and the reason is because I'm an addict. I'm a game addict. So if I'm under contract for a novel or something, I cannot play a game because I will play the game all the time and never write a single word.
What games do you play?
I mean, literally, I've been playing Witcher 3 now for 3 years, only because I know that I can stop playing it for 2 or 3 months and then go back to it. Yeah, the last game that I played from start to finish in like a month was Skyrim. You know.
Oh yes, I love Skyrim. That's my go-to game as well. Of course,
the whole Borderlands franchise. I played all of those. Those I find just wonderful. But you know, when I get into a serious game, I'll forget to feed my kids. I'll forget my wife. I'll forget everything. So I just can't do it. I know my limitations.
That's a good addict, knowing when to stop and knowing your limits. So that's good. Is there anything that you did want to play or get into, but you chose not to because of your time restrictions?
Oh yeah, there's tons of games. I can't, you know, I'm on the spot now, so you want me to name any actual name of the game?
Oh, you don't have to name them. It's okay.
But no, I mean, every month I see a game coming out. It's like, oh, dude. And I have friends of mine on Facebook or Twitter or something who will be like, oh yeah, I'm playing this right now. I'm like, oh, I wish I could be playing that game, but you know, there's only so much time in a day. I write. I work, I teach college online. I try and have a social life. I have a wife who deserves a lot more attention than I give her. And so, there's only so much time in a day. So normally when and if I play a game, it's when I'm in between something.
Yeah, I kind of live vicariously through my husband now. He plays Rocket League, and he was playing Doom Eternal the other night, and I just fall asleep watching him play because I'm so tired and busy doing other things as well. So yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I totally get that. Also, I wish I could get Animal Crossing. That looks like a fun game.
Does it?
A lot of people are playing it, even all of my alien friends. One of the things that I wanted to talk about is obviously the style of book that you're releasing later this year. Could you kind of give us a rundown and explain what it is? The Dan Brown-esque one.
So I have a book coming out from Simon & Schuster's Saga Press in December, and it's called Bone Chase. It took me 3 years to research it, and the publishers compare it to a Dan Brown style book, so James Rollins style book, because the reason is it's one of these biblical thrillers where there's something in the Bible that's been hidden from people, but is hiding in plain sight. It's a 10,000-year-old mystery, and those people who figure it out start getting chased by these different conspiratorial groups until bad things happen. Like I said, it took 3 years to research it, and so far everybody who's read it has looked at me and gone, "How did you figure this out?" I'm like, "It's in plain sight. I mean, all you have to do is just read all this stuff, and it's already proven." And they're like, "Oh my God!" So it's pretty exciting. A lot of people say it's the best book I've ever written, but they say that about every book I write. And this is so different from like the Aliens book, or so different from my military sci-fi books. I don't even classify it as being my best. I just classify it as being a really superb thriller that, if you like conspiracy theories that are 10,000 years old and mysteries hiding in plain sight, and a protagonists who are just everyday people who get caught up in it, then you'll like this novel for sure.
I'm pretty excited about that. I'm into that sort of thing. So yeah, I'll make sure I include a link to that in the blog. If there is a pre-order open yet?
Oh yeah, the pre-order's open. There's a Simon & Schuster website that links the indie book stores and all the big ones like, Barnes & Nobles and Amazon and Kobo and everybody. It's coming out in hardback and in ebooks. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. Can't wait.
Yeah, me neither. I'm really excited.
How did you end up being approached for Alien Infiltrator? Did they see your military sci-fi and go, it makes sense to ask Weston to do this? Or did you have to go to like a pitch meeting or something like that?
No, that's part of it. See, a lot of times if you get approached out of the blue for like a tie-in of any sort, it's because some editor has found you to be a trustworthy, good-selling author who turns in books on time, who works well with editors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Steve Saffel, who is the editor for the Alien books at Titan, I've known him for 15 to 20 years. And he and I have always wanted to work together, and this came up. And he just reached out to my agent and said, "Hey, would Weston be interested in doing this?" And, after some consideration and some conversation, we said, "Yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and do this." Because, being part of the Alien franchise, even more than I am at this point, would be great. Just because it's, it's something that we all cut our teeth on and we all know and love. And the idea that, a fan of the movie would also be a fan of my book is, pretty incredible. So I definitely want to be part of something like that.
That's cool. On the back of the topic of Alien, what do you think is the most impactful scene that you've witnessed in any of the films? Like something that really stayed with you?
Well, I mean, the very first scene when they're gathered around the dinner table, and the alien explodes out of the chest burster. The first time we see a chest burster, I mean, that just kind of broke all the rules. At that point, you're like, oh shit, anything can happen at this point. And then, you know, there's the iconic scene in 2 with Ripley in the moving armor where she's fighting the alien. I mean, there's so many iconic scenes I could bring up. I do think though that most of my favorite scenes in all the movies have to do with Ripley, and it's nice that you know, you have this series with this super strong female character, because that's not often the case.
Yeah, it was definitely genre changing back in '79 because it's like apart from Leia, there wasn't really many like females who were in strong roles and being able to, you know, subvert expectations of the audience where, you know, usually the female is quite useless in the situation.
Right, and then if you look at Leia in Star Wars, both Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, she was a damsel in distress, so she had to be saved by men, whereas Ripley's never really been a damsel in distress. She's always saved other people.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think, like, because of your conspiracy novel that's coming out, what do you think sort of, I don't know how to word this, what sort of symbolism do you see in the Alien films that you think that there is some sort of deeper message that's being given to us?
Well, I think there's several things, and I think one of the things that they're trying to get to that they haven't gotten to, they're kind of being a little bit soft-handed, velvet glove touch about, is, you know, what's the nature of our species? Where did we come from? Were we engineered or what? Because the whole nature of these engineers kind of makes it interesting to where now you wonder where all the different species on all the different planets came from. Were they just created out of the DNA gene pool as we sort of think, or what? So I kind of like the idea of intelligent design, and I wish they would spend a little bit more time talking about that.
How did you feel about the turn they took with Alien Covenant, saying that David had created the alien or recreated it, as some people believe?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, first of all, you had an unreliable narrator in that movie, right? So because it's an unreliable narrator, how much of it can we really believe? Because, you know, everything has a point of view. The camera is not the point of view. The point of view is your character. And the camera is relating what your character is thinking and doing. So too often we think the camera is being the same camera that would be in a reality TV show, to where the camera is the point of view, because you, the person, is the point of view through the camera. But when you're looking at a fictionalized movie like Aliens, any of the Aliens movies, or any movie for that matter, the camera is not the point of view. It's the main character, and David was flawed and unreliable. So I don't necessarily believe anything he said.
That's an interesting take. Definitely.
Well, I'm a master of fine arts in creative writing and screenwriting. So you know, I probably dissect things a little bit more than other people, as from a DNA level. But I know that from an artistic level, you have to have a point of view and you have to have a protagonist. And it's been a favorite of many a director and many a writer to have unreliable narrators, because they can then have fans come and say, oh, he did this or he did that. And then the director can pretend that, everybody's right.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. And that's really amazing, you having that sort of experience and being able to analyze a film that way. Do you think that sort of thing has helped in your writing for novels as well?
Gosh, I hope so. I would hope to think that all this money I spent in higher education went to waste. No, in all jest. So I was published and winning awards before I even got my bachelor's degree. I won the Bram Stoker Award for Best First Novel before I received a bachelor's, and I went on to get a Master of Fine Arts. And I really think that after I got the Master of Fine Arts, that my writing did become better, because I focused entirely during my MFA program on writing nothing but literary fiction, because I wanted to understand it and get really good at that, so that when I wrote genre fiction, I could bring literary sensibilities to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Would you ever consider becoming a screenwriter and doing something for TV or film?
Well, sure, but I mean, you have to have not only an idea, but you have to have connections. It's all about connections. I have a Hollywood manager who shops my stuff around, and I've had meetings with heads and deputies and vice presidents of Sony and Paramount and a lot of the different studios, and we've had great conversations. But it's taking a meeting. In Hollywood, you take a meeting, that means absolutely nothing. It's just kind of a cool thing to do, because everybody takes meetings, but nobody makes decisions. So if ever I was to come up with a great idea and it was to become a movie, I would definitely like to be a part of it. For instance, my SEAL Team 666 books, they have a shopping agreement with Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He wants to.
What?
He wants to turn those into a movie.
Wow, that's cool.
But that's been going on for about 5 years, and if that happens, that would be awesome. And then I would kind of like beg them, let me be a part of it. But it's really up to them whether or not they would let this guy be a part of their movie. Hopefully they would, because I would definitely like to be in the writer's room and learn that whole type of genre of writing, because it's a lot more collaborative, and it's a lot more it has to be done now, whereas the writing I do is almost entirely in isolation, and it's at my own pace.
Has there ever been a deadline that you couldn't meet?
Coming back from Afghanistan in 2013, I was supposed to have a novel done in December, and I didn't get back till November, and I asked for another month. So I got it done in January, and the nice fellows at Solaris Rebellion, they gave me that extra month because I had a really good excuse, because I was in Afghanistan.
What were you in Afghanistan for?
Oh, I was doing some work for the military. I'm an old guy, so I don't do anything really exciting anymore. I don't shoot things or break things, but I do a lot of paperwork over there. And because everything moves on paper and the computer, so I basically just sat behind a computer and did computer work for about 14 hours a day.
Wow, that's a long day.
I would like to say it's really exciting work I did, but
Oh yeah.
I was just a cog in the machine. Hearing the occasional roadside bomb go off or the occasional attack. I was in the green zone, so I was pretty safe. But occasionally bad people would slip inside the green zone and attack here and there. But for the most part, I was safe.
Well, if you are able to write under those circumstances, I would say that you are a fairly good writer. Out of your experiences, do you have any advice for people who want to get into your line of work as an author?
It's just right. So many people have self-doubt. Even experienced authors like me have self-doubt. It's just right. People are like, well, wow, how did you write that novel? I'll never be able to write a novel. I said, well, what if you write one page a day? Can you write one page a day? They're like, well, yeah. I said, well, then if you write 1 page a day in 365 days, you'll have a novel done. And they look at me like, huh. And then I say, guess what? If you write 2 pages a day, you'll have a novel done in 180 days. And they look at me like, what? And I go by the Tom Piccirilli school of writing. Tom Piccirilli was a horror mystery thriller author who kind of took a bunch of us under his wing in the late 1990s, and he's since passed away. But he didn't believe in a word count. What he believed in is writing 5 pages a day, and it could be 5 pages of dialogue or 5 pages of whatever. It's 5 pages a day, because if you write 5 pages a day, you have a novel done in 3 months. Done, finished, 3 months.
Wow.
So when I write a horror novel under contract, it takes me 3 months. And then it takes me another month of editing. If I write a science fiction novel, it takes me 4 months, because I have to dedicate a month to actual science, because I can't make that shit up.
That's another thing. What I really appreciated in Alex White's book and Scott Sigler's book is the element of science that was going into all the decisions of the characters and the creation of the world. How do you feel about maybe not so much your book, because you can't reveal too much, but including scientific research in your other books?
Oh, no, you have to. I mean, you have to. The reader has to feel that there's something authentic in it, or else they're going to dismiss you as an author. You can't treat science as magic. You really have to work hard at it. I did an alien invasion series for Solaris, 3-book series. It was Grunt Life, Grunt Trader, and Grunt Hero. And the idea was that there's an alien invasion coming to the world, and only people with PTSD are best able to fight it because of the chemistry change in their brain. I had to get actual scientists to help me with the alien technology. I said, this is what I want to do. And they would shake their heads and say, no, Weston, you can't do that. And so I'm like, well, how close can I get to this? And so they would help me and work with me to get the science down, so that when I wrote it, you, the reader, would absolutely believe what I'm saying and keep reading, instead of going outside the story and going, that just doesn't make sense, or I don't believe that. Because the minute I take you out of the story, you're not going to be a happy reader. Mm. You want to turn the page. That's all you want to do. You want to turn the page and stay in the world I've created.
Yeah, for sure. Just before we wrap up this interview, because obviously I'd love to talk alien all day, but we're really limited in what we can do. How has, I guess, this pandemic and self-isolation changed things for you, work-wise, life-wise? How do you feel? Is there any advice you've got out there for people going through this at the moment?
Well, I thought I would do a lot more writing, but with the existential threat of the virus constantly around you, and the fear that some of your relatives who are maybe older might catch this and possibly die, it makes it hard to concentrate on writing. I've been in isolation now for about 4 weeks. The first week and a half, I got to tell you, I really didn't do much. I was kind of lost. But then my wife set me down and put me in the right frame of mind. And since then, I think it's just make a list of projects. I mean, there's so many things that you haven't done that need to be done around the house or in your own projects or things like that. I mean, it's not until last week I started writing again. And I'm just simply working on a short story because I'm in between contracts right now and I don't have anything due until October. So right now I'm just working on a short story. It's really easy to be overtaken by the news. It's really easy to be overtaken by all the drama that's going on in your country, in my country, all over the place. I found that my greatest success has just been to focus on family, pay attention to each other, use this time to get closer to each other, and do the small things.
That is very good advice. Thank you so much. And to everyone out there celebrating Alien Day wherever you are, don't be afraid to reach out to any of us. We are all on the socials and we're all going through this together. And
For sure.
if you ever want to hit us up for a chat, feel free.
Yep, for sure.
Okay. Could you give us some information about where people could pre-order your book coming out in December and the new Alien book?
Well, sure. Well, there are going to be links on your site, and so you'll be able to provide that to them.
Mm-hmm.
The Alien book is going to be on all the major bookstores, and they should be in all of your independent bookstores. Same with my books from Solaris and from Simon & Schuster. I know Simon & Schuster has a website that pretty much lists all books that come out, and they provide links to like the indie bookstores and Barnes and Nobles and Waterstones of the world and Amazons and things like that. But really, all you have to do is just GTS it, Google that shit, and my name is hard to pronounce if you don't know, but it's pronounced Ochse, and it's spelled Ochse. So Weston Ochse. If you just Google that, all my books will pop up, and you'll be able to find them.
Fantastic. I will make sure that we include some links, but I thoroughly encourage everyone listening to this on Alien Day to head out, or not maybe head out to your local bookstore, but call them up, pre-order there, because, they're going to be suffering a lot with this shutdown.
Buy local for sure.
Yeah, if you can, buy local. As much as it's great to buy online, sometimes it's good to support local small businesses because they're really suffering at this time.
And I know Alien Infiltrator is definitely up for pre-order.
Fantastic. I will look forward to that. Do we have a date on that yet?
No, we haven't. We're still waiting on Fox and Cold Iron Studios to get back with us.
That makes sense. And obviously for printing as well, it'd probably be a bit of a delay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be midsummer, supposed to be July, but with the pandemic and with everything that's going on, I kind of think everything will probably get pushed 2 or 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm looking forward to it and looking forward to your book in December. And thank you so much for joining me on this interview today and giving us a sort of insight into what it's like to write for a tie-in novel and also just write in general.
Sure. No problem. Thank you, Mother. I appreciate that.
No problem at all.
This is Weston Ochse. Game over, man.
And this is Mother signing off.
Remember to like, share, or support Studio Yutani on Patreon, and subscribe to yutani.studio to stay up to date. Transmission complete.